Bragg in the big number 53 Fiat, and Victor Hemery, who made lap 5, averaging a speed of 81.6 miles per hour, the fastest ever on this course, before ignition problems took him out of the race. Patoki and the number 51 Marmon took the lead for a few laps before turning over on Montgomery Crossroad. Finally, David Bruce Brown, the winner of the 1910 Grand Prize race, who was now driving the big number 48 Fiat, moved into the lead to take his second straight Grand Prize victory in Savannah. Byrne finishing second. The Fiat now won again, taking 2 out of the 3 Grand Prize Cups over the bands. Bruce Brown, whose once disapproving mother attended the race, proclaimed, "I am certainly proud of my boy." When asked if she would let him race again, she answered, "We have seen enough in the present to be joyful about, without borrowing trouble from the future." Once again, Savannah had staged a perfect race with no major casualties either among racers or spectators. However, due to the changes in racing and the pervasive acceptance of the automobile by the public, many felt this would be the last of the great prize events ever to be held in Savannah.
By the end of the 1911 races, they could no longer stage the races because automobile traffic of the local people had gotten so great that they couldn't afford to close those streets down, those roads down for the time of the race. And that was really the advent of the closed track racing that they have nowadays. I think the Indianapolis 500 was first run in May of, Memorial Day, May the 31st of 1911. And it and other tracks sprung up to take the place of the open road races, which was how automobile racing did begin.
It just became apparent that if racing was to continue, we had to go to tracks where the access to the streets or the road courses could be controlled and where spectators could see the entire race. You know, spectators in Savannah, which there were thousands, would see a car go by maybe every 15, 20 minutes, and they'd only see it for 30 seconds. So what do you do in the meantime? So people came upon the idea of building circular tracks and oval tracks. They were made out of boards, they were made out of bricks, as Indianapolis was, and you could put 50, 100,000 people in there, and they could see the entire race the whole time. They could see the cars all the time and see everything that happened.
I think a lot of people were damn glad they didn't have to close the roads, you know. It was like everything else. It was a nuisance to some people and a big thrill to others, depending on how you looked at it, and so on. But it certainly, I think, as we've said, gave credence to the fact that the automobile was here, and like most of those things, I don't think the general public really feels that until have had time to be retrospective about it.
I don't think people in Savannah in general can imagine the importance of having these races and what effect it had on the United States and the development of the car. People would think of Detroit. If you ask them what city had the most important effect on the growth of the automotive industry, they would say Detroit, and they'd be right. But manufacturers weren't in Detroit in general when these races were run in Savannah. They were all over the U.S., mainly in the East and Midwest, but they weren't necessarily in Detroit. In Savannah, for 3 years, it was the focal point of the world for the automobile. And that's important for the people in Savannah to know. You know, that place in history belongs to Savannah as the only city in the South that has that place in history.
In 1912, the Grand Prize race moved north to Milwaukee and on to California in 1913. The days of the Great Savannah Race were over, and its many participants left Savannah to pursue their racing career in different venues. Both Joe Dawson and Ralph De Palma would go on to win the Indianapolis 500 in 1912 and 1915, respectively. Caleb Bragg would win the 1912 Grand Prize race in Milwaukee, And Bob Berman would go on to set many speed records, being proclaimed the king of speed. Washington Roebling II, the Mercer driver who finished second in the 1910 Savannah Challenge race, would be lost on the maiden voyage of the Titanic in 1912. Following his victories in Savannah, David Bruce Brown and his mechanic were both killed in the 1912 Grand Prize race in Milwaukee, driving the same big Fiat with which they had won the previous year. Louis Wagner, the 1908 Grand Prize winner, returned to Savannah many years after the races ended.
Mr. Wagner visited my father. I think that's who it was. One of the drivers in those races came by as a very old man and visited with my father at his home here in Savannah, who was also an old man in his 80s, and they had quite a get-together over the race one day. I wish I could remember for sure which one, but I think Wagner was the one. And each of them has gone his own way since then.
Today, the race course retains some of its characteristic turns and straightaways for which it was famous. Some vestiges of its existence remain as well. The Mercer Camp on La Roche, the unmarked grave of DeRosa, the mechanic killed in 1908 and buried in Laurel Grove Cemetery. A marker now stands at the site of the great grandstand at Waters Avenue, outside of what is now Daffin Park. Along the route today, the old race course is cluttered with traffic, cars of people who have no idea of the great races of years gone by. But some nights, when the wind blows in off the coastal marshes, one can hear the thunder of the old race cars and feel the spirit of the drivers who brought to Savannah the age of speed.